You have probably watched dozens of cooking hack videos, tried half of them, and discovered that most are either obvious or simply do not work. Indian cooking is different. For generations, millions of households have relied on clever techniques that make food richer and surprisingly easier to cook. Today, we're counting down 31 of the smartest Indian cooking hacks that work in any kitchen. Stay until the end, because the final 5 are the kind of tricks you'll wish you had learned years ago. Number 31. Use black salt instead of regular salt to finish your salads and fruit. Black salt, which you can find at any Indian grocery store or on Amazon, is called kala namak, and it has a sulfuric, egg-like aroma that sounds weird but tastes absolutely magical on cucumbers, tomatoes, and especially watermelon. Indian home cooks have been finishing their chat and salads with it for generations. The sulfur compounds in black salt actually trigger your taste receptors differently than sodium chloride alone, creating a perception of savoriness and depth that regular salt simply cannot achieve. Just a pinch at the end is all you need. It costs almost nothing, and it will make people ask what your secret ingredient is. Number 30. Soak your onions in ice water for 10 minutes before cutting them. Indian chefs who do large volume prep discovered this trick because working with massive quantities of onions is a real occupational hazard. The cold water draws out the volatile sulfur compounds that cause your eyes to water. The reason it works is chemistry. Those tearing compounds are water-soluble and temperature-sensitive, and cold water both dissolves them out of the outer layers and slows the enzymatic reaction that creates them. After soaking, drain, and cut, you will get through a whole bag of onions without a single tear. Number 29. Add a tiny pinch of baking soda when cooking dried lentils. This is a staple technique in Indian dal cooking that speeds up cooking time significantly. Baking soda raises the pH of the water, which weakens the pectin structure in the lentil cell walls. Those walls break down faster and more evenly. Just a quarter teaspoon per cup of dry lentils is enough. Too much and your lentils taste soapy, so keep it small. This works equally well for dried beans. A pot of rajma that normally takes 2 hours can be done in under 90 minutes without a pressure cooker. Number 28. Bloom your spices in fat before adding liquids. This is possibly the single most important cooking technique that Indian cuisine has contributed to the global kitchen. When ground spices or whole spices hit hot oil or butter, the fat-soluble flavor compounds are extracted and dispersed throughout the dish in a way that water simply cannot achieve. Heat activates the aromatic molecules and drives off bitter, volatile compounds. Indian home cooks do this every single day without even thinking about it. If you've been adding spices directly to a sauce or stew without blooming them first, you have been leaving serious flavor on the table. 30 seconds in hot fat transforms your spices completely. Number 27. Use the pasta water technique for Indian gravies too. Most people know to save pasta water because the starch thickens and binds the sauce. Indian home cooks do the exact same thing by reserving the water they boiled potatoes or vegetables in and using it to thin gravies instead of plain water. That starchy liquid has body, has some vegetable flavor, and helps the curry stick to whatever it is coating. Next time you boil potatoes for anything, save that water in a cup. Use it to adjust the consistency of your curry and watch how much richer and more cohesive the final dish becomes. Number 26. Massage salt into your greens 5 minutes before cooking. Indian chefs who work with bitter greens like methi, which is fenugreek leaves, or sayag, use this trick constantly. Rubbing a generous pinch of salt into your raw greens and letting them sit draws out excess moisture through osmosis and simultaneously begins breaking down the bitterness compounds in the leaves. When you cook those pre-salted greens, they wilt faster, cook more evenly, and taste noticeably less bitter. This works beautifully on kale, Swiss chard, spinach, and collard greens, all of which are easy to find at any American grocery store. Number 25. Keep a bowl of salt water nearby when cutting eggplant. Eggplant oxidizes and turns brown almost instantly when cut, and it also absorbs oil like a sponge during cooking. Indian home cooks who make bangan bharta or brinjal curries regularly drop their cut eggplant pieces directly into lightly salted water as they chop. The salt water prevents browning by limiting the eggplant's contact with oxygen, and soaking draws out some of the bitter compounds. When you pull the pieces out and pat them dry before cooking, you also get a denser piece of eggplant that absorbs significantly less oil. Your dish will be lighter and taste cleaner. Number 24. Use the back of a spoon to test oil temperature without a thermometer. Indian chefs in home kitchens rarely own kitchen thermometers, yet they deep fry perfectly every single time. The trick is to dip the handle of a wooden spoon or the back of a metal spoon into the oil. If bubbles form immediately and steadily around it, your oil is around 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the perfect temperature for most frying. If it sizzles violently, the oil is too hot. If nothing happens, wait longer. This visual and tactile feedback system is far more reliable than guessing by watching smoke, and it gives you a consistent starting point every time. Number 23. Add a whole cardamom pod to your rice cooking water. This is something Indian home cooks do automatically when making plain steamed rice or pulao. Whole green cardamom pods release their essential oils slowly into the cooking water, infusing the rice with a floral, slightly sweet aroma that is subtle but unmistakable. You do not taste cardamom when you eat the rice. You simply experience rice that tastes somehow more special and layered. You can also add a small cinnamon stick or a couple of cloves for the same effect. Remove the whole spices before serving or just leave them in and let your guests push them aside naturally. Number 22. Freeze your ginger and grate it directly from frozen. Indian cooking uses ginger in enormous quantities, and peeling and mincing fresh ginger is genuinely tedious. Indian home cooks figured out that unpeeled ginger freezes beautifully and grates effortlessly on a microplane when frozen solid. The peel grates right along with the flesh and essentially disappears into the dish, so you do not even need to peel it first. The freezing process also breaks down the cell walls slightly, making the ginger release its juices and flavor more readily when it hits the pan. Buy a big piece of ginger, throw it in the freezer, and grate what you need directly without thawing. Number 21. Use yogurt as a meat tenderizer before marinating. This is the backbone of tandoori chicken, seekh kebabs, and dozens of other Indian grilled and roasted dishes. Yogurt contains lactic acid, which gently denatures the proteins in meat without the aggressive breakdown you get from acidic marinades like vinegar or lemon juice alone. The result is meat that stays juicy and tender rather than becoming mushy or texturally off. Indian chefs mix yogurt with spices and let the meat marinate for anywhere from 2 hours to overnight. This works on chicken thighs, lamb chops, or even pork ribs. The yogurt also creates a beautiful crust when exposed to high heat. Number 20. Temper your spices in a small separate pan for maximum aroma. In Indian cooking, this is called a tadka or tarka, and it is the practice of heating whole spices or ground spices in hot oil or ghee in a small pan and then pouring that fragrant, sizzling oil directly onto a finished dish. The reason this works better than just cooking spices into a dish from the beginning is that fresh aromatic compounds are released right at the moment of serving, hitting your nose before the food even reaches your mouth. Indian home cooks finish their dal, soups, and even some yogurt dishes with a tadka poured on top. It takes 30 seconds and creates an entirely new sensory dimension. Number 19. Rest your roti dough for at least 30 minutes before rolling. Anyone who has tried to make Indian flatbreads and ended up with a rubbery, uneven mess understands this problem. The dough fights back. Resting develops the gluten into a more relaxed, extensible network by allowing the gluten strands to unwind and the water to fully hydrate the flour particles. After resting, the dough rolls out smoothly and evenly with almost no resistance. Cover your dough with a damp cloth to prevent drying. This exact principle applies to American pie crust, pizza dough, and any other flour-based dough. Let it rest, and it will behave. Number 18. Add a tablespoon of ghee to the water when boiling rice. Indian home cooks add a small amount of ghee or oil to their rice cooking water, and the reason is both practical and delicious. The fat coats the starch granules on the outside of each rice grain, limiting their ability to stick together. This gives you fluffy, separate grains every time. The ghee also enriches the flavor subtly. If you do not have ghee, a teaspoon of neutral oil or even butter works. This trick is especially effective with long-grain basmati rice, which benefits enormously from this light fat coating during cooking. Number 17. Use hing, also called asafoetida, as a flavoring agent when cooking legumes. This tiny yellow powder, sold as hing or asafoetida at Indian grocery stores, has a powerful, pungent smell that transforms completely when cooked in hot fat. It becomes an incredibly savory, almost garlic onion-like flavor that adds enormous depth to dishes. Beyond flavor, Indian home cooks and traditional texts both note that hing significantly reduces the gas-producing compounds in legumes, making beans and lentils much easier to digest. A tiny pinch, and I mean truly tiny, like an eighth of a teaspoon dropped into hot oil with other spices, is all you ever need for a whole pot of dal. Number 16. Score your vegetables before marinating them. When Indian chefs prepare whole or large-cut vegetables for tandoor cooking or roasting, they make shallow cuts across the surface with a knife before applying marinade. These cuts expose more surface area to the marinade and allow the flavors to penetrate deeply rather than sitting on the outermost layer. This works brilliantly on whole mushrooms, large zucchini pieces, bell peppers, cauliflower florets, and paneer cubes. Score in a crosshatch pattern, rub the marinade in firmly so it gets into the cuts, and let it sit for at least 20 minutes. Your vegetables will taste seasoned throughout rather than just on the surface. Number 15. Soak basmati rice before cooking, but only for 20 minutes. Indian home cooks almost universally soak their basmati rice before cooking, and the timing matters enormously. 20 to 30 minutes is the sweet spot. Soaking allows the rice grains to absorb water, which means they need less time in the pot, and the cooking is more even from outside to center. The starch granules on the surface also begin to gelatinize slightly during soaking, which actually reduces surface stickiness. Soak for too long and the grains become fragile and break during cooking. Rinse, soak 20 minutes, drain, then cook with the standard 1 to 1.5 ratio of rice to water. Number 14. Use Kashmiri chili powder for color instead of regular chili. This is the trick behind the stunning deep red color of restaurant-style Indian dishes. Kashmiri chili powder has a mild heat level, but an intense, vivid red pigment that turns curries and marinades a beautiful, appetizing color that regular paprika or cayenne simply cannot replicate. Indian chefs use it generously because it provides all the color without overwhelming heat. You can find it at Indian grocery stores or online. Use it in any recipe where you want visual impact without burning everyone's mouths. Substitute it 1-for-1 with paprika in any American recipe for a significant color and mild flavor upgrade. Number 13. Add a raw onion half to your oil when frying to monitor temperature. This is an old Indian kitchen trick for consistent deep frying. Place half an onion, cut side down, into your oil as it heats. The onion begins to gently sizzle and gradually brown. When the cut face of the onion turns a light golden color, your oil is at the right frying temperature. The onion absorbs and disperses the heat measurement visually in a way that is highly reliable. Remove the onion before frying your actual food. As a bonus, that onion has now infused the oil with a faint savory sweetness that enhances whatever you fry afterward. Number 12. Make your tomato base in large batches and freeze it. Indian home cooks who make curry regularly rely on a fundamental flavor base of cooked onion, tomato, ginger, and garlic. This base, cooked down to a thick, fragrant paste, forms the foundation of hundreds of different dishes and takes the most time in any recipe. Smart Indian home cooks make huge batches of this base, portion it into ice cube trays or small containers, and freeze it. Each cube or portion is essentially one serving worth of curry base. Pull a cube out, drop it into a hot pan, add your protein and spices, and a rich, deeply flavored curry comes together in 15 minutes instead of 45. Number 11. Rub cast iron or stainless pans with a cut potato to remove sticky residue. Indian kitchens work heavily with starches and sugars that caramelize and stick to pan surfaces. An old trick passed down through generations of Indian home cooks is to cut a potato in half and scrub the cut face across a warm but not hot pan. The starch in the potato acts as a gentle abrasive that lifts cooked-on food, and the mild acidity helps break down caramelized sugars. This works better than scrubbing pads on stubborn residue without scratching the pan surface. Rinse the pan with water afterward. This is especially useful for the sticky kadai pans used for Indian cooking. Number 10. Use cold butter in your paratha dough for extra flakiness. Most people think of parathas as dense flatbreads, But the flakiest, most layered parathas come from dough made with very cold fat worked in quickly. Indian chefs who specialize in North Indian breads know that keeping the fat cold and in small pieces creates steam pockets when the bread hits the hot griddle. Those steam pockets create the distinct layers. Grate frozen butter directly into your flour. Mix quickly so it stays cold. Add just enough water to bring it together and rest the dough before rolling. The same principle is why French croissants and American biscuits use cold butter. Number 9. Infuse water with coriander seeds for digestive benefits and flavor. This is a traditional Indian practice that is having a genuine moment right now. Lightly crushing a teaspoon of coriander seeds, soaking them in 2 cups of water overnight, and drinking the strained water in the morning is something generations of Indian home cooks and grandmothers have recommended for digestion and bloating. Beyond the wellness angle, that coriander water has a light, citrusy, floral flavor that makes it genuinely pleasant to drink. You can also use it as the liquid base for cooking rice or making a light sauce. The essential oils in coriander seeds are water-soluble and contribute real flavor compounds. Number 8. Add a spoonful of tamarind concentrate to any dish that needs depth without sourness. This is one of the most sophisticated tricks in Indian cooking. Tamarind in small amounts does not read as sour. It reads as complex, fruity, and mysteriously savory. Indian chefs use small quantities of tamarind in meat gravies, vegetable dishes, and even some lentil preparations specifically to add that layer of background complexity that makes a dish taste like it cooked for hours. Add half a teaspoon of tamarind concentrate to your next pasta sauce, your beef stew, or your braised short ribs. Do not tell anyone what it is, and watch them try to figure out why it tastes so much better than usual. Number 7. Dry roast your whole spices before grinding them. Every Indian home cook knows that the aromatics in whole spices are locked inside hard seed coats and need heat to be fully released. Dry roasting in a pan over medium heat for 2 to 3 minutes, stirring constantly, drives off moisture and creates hundreds of new flavor compounds through the Maillard reaction. The spices become more fragrant, more complex, and more potent. Let them cool completely before grinding so you do not create a paste from heat and steam. Freshly roasted and ground cumin, coriander, and cardamom bear almost no resemblance to their pre-ground supermarket counterparts. This single step upgrades everything you cook. Number 6. Use the pressure cooker water from boiling chickpeas as a liquid gold replacement. In Indian cooking, canned chickpeas are used sometimes, but many Indian home cooks boil dried chickpeas in a pressure cooker, and the resulting cooking liquid is absolutely packed with protein, starch, and chickpea flavor. This liquid is what the vegan world calls aquafaba when it comes from canned chickpeas, but the pressure-cooked version is even more concentrated. Use it as a soup base to thin your hummus, to add body to curries, or even whipped into a foam as a garnish. Do not pour it down the drain. It is one of the most undervalued cooking liquids in existence. Number 5. Make instant buttermilk with lemon juice and whole milk. Indian chayas, which is a thin-spiced yogurt drink, has a tangy, sour quality that comes from fermentation, but Indian home cooks who need that sourness quickly use this trick. Add 1 tablespoon of fresh lemon juice to 1 cup of whole milk. Stir it once and let it sit for 5 minutes. The acid curdles the proteins in the milk, creating a thick, tangy liquid that functions identically to buttermilk in any recipe. Indian chefs use this in quick marinades, batters for pakoras, and pancake-like dishes when they have not planned ahead. American bakers use the exact same trick for buttermilk pancakes, buttermilk biscuits, and cake recipes. Number 4. Crack an egg into your dal for an incredible protein boost and silkiness. This is a trick that is not universally known even among Indian home cooks, but it is used in certain regional traditions to create a dal that is extraordinarily rich and silky. After your dal is fully cooked and you have done your tadka, crack 1 or 2 eggs directly into the simmering pot and stir immediately. The eggs scramble into tiny, tender curds that distribute through the dal, adding both protein and a luxurious creaminess that is different from adding cream or coconut milk. The egg proteins interact with the lentil starch to create a body and mouth feel that is deeply satisfying. Season with an extra pinch of salt and serve immediately. Number 3. Toast your dry spice blends in a dry pan every time you open a new jar. Here's something most people never think about. Every time you open a jar of garam masala, curry powder, or any pre-mixed spice blend, the volatile aromatics that were released when you first opened it are slowly escaping every subsequent time you open that container. Indian chefs who are serious about flavor intensity take a small portion of any pre-mixed spice blend and briefly toast it in a dry pan for 60 seconds before adding it to their cooking. This reactivates the aromatic compounds, drives off any stale notes, and intensifies the flavor by easily 30%. Your spice cabinet is probably full of spices that need this treatment right now. Number 2. Cook your onions down completely until they turn dark brown and jammy, not just golden. This is the foundation of authentic Indian curry and the single step where most home cooks in every country cut corners. Indian chefs know that the deep, rich, almost sweet and complex flavor base of a great curry comes from onions that have been cooked on medium-low heat for a minimum of 25 to 30 minutes until they are deeply caramelized, dark brown, jammy, and sweet. The Maillard reaction and caramelization that happen in those final 10 minutes of cooking create flavor compounds that simply do not exist in a pale or golden onion. This cannot be rushed. If you crank the heat, the onions burn and turn bitter. Low and slow is the only way. Every shortcut produces inferior results. This is the single most impactful change you can make to your curry, your French onion soup, your burgers, or any savory dish that uses onions as a base. And we are at number 1. The most powerful, the most counterintuitive, and the most useful cooking trick that Indian home cooks have been using for generations that the rest of the world is only just discovering. Use mustard seeds as your first indicator that the oil is hot enough before adding anything else. Here's how this works and why it is so brilliant. Pour your oil into a cold pan, add a few whole black or brown mustard seeds before the oil heats up, and then turn on the heat to medium or medium-high. Do not add anything else. Watch the seeds. When those mustard seeds begin to sputter, crackle, and pop, your oil has reached the precise temperature range of 375 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is ideal for releasing the flavor from other spices and aromatics without burning them. Every time you use this technique, you will stop guessing about oil temperature. You will stop burning garlic and ginger, and your food will taste dramatically better. Indian home cooks and Indian chefs have been using this built-in temperature gauge for thousands of years. It is the most elegant, zero-technology, perfectly calibrated cooking thermometer that nature has ever designed. The popping of mustard seeds is your green light to add everything else. Try even 3 or 4 of these tricks the next time you cook an Indian meal, and I promise you will immediately taste the difference in your food.